We are breaking into programming to update you on the breaking news that we have been following most of the day today. 2 Berrien County bailiffs are dead after a shooting at the courthouse in St. Joseph. Now, the suspect also died. Let's listen in to Sheriff Paul Bailey.
In that fight, that inmate was able to get the deputy's gun away and then shoot the deputy and then move out from that area and kill the 2 bailiffs. And then was later taken down by 2 other bailiffs that responded to the area after the shooting. And now I'm going to give the names of the deceased, who were my close friends. The 2 court officers were Joe Zangaro, who was 61 years of age, and Ron Kinzel, who was 63 years of age. Joe Zangaro was the head of the courthouse security and has been employed with the Berrien County Trial Court since 2004. Joe retired from the Michigan State Police as post commander of the Bridgman Post. Ron Kinzel was a bailiff and has been employed by the Berrien County Trial Court since 2005. He retired as a sergeant from the Benton Charter Township Department after serving in the U.S. Army. Both of these officers were well respected by their peers. Deputy James Atterbury is 41 years old. He has worked at the Sheriff's Department since 1998 and is in intensive care now, but doing fine. He has just recently been taken out of surgery from his injuries to his arm. There is a citizen, and we're not releasing her name at this time, received injuries to her arm, and we will release her name at a later time after we know all, once the investigation is finished. So with broken hearts, we stand here today to give you that information on our friends. The suspect in this incident is Larry Darnell Gordon, a white male, age 45, resides in the city of Coloma. He is currently an inmate at the jail and is here on numerous felony charges. So I can answer any questions if there's any. At this time, we're still investigating, but it doesn't appear that he was cuffed at the time of the incident.
Is it customary to have him cuffed?
It depends on the situation. Yes, we cuff some people going into the room, so we're still piecing everything together to see where the disturbance happened. So we'll be piecing that together here in the future. We had no indications that he has been violent. He hasn't been in our jail, so at this time we had no warning signs of him doing anything. So, but we're going to continue to investigate it. The investigators are interviewing people that he was involved with to see if anything, he was telling anybody anything that he planned to do.
Sure, but was Deputy Atterbury that was escorting him, and that was the gun that Gordon got?
That's the way it appears now, that this suspect was able to remove his weapon. We're still waiting to hear back from the investigators because they're still processing the scene before we can determine that. The bodies are going to be removed and taken to Grand Rapids for an autopsy, and we'll know more at that time.
Sheriff, I thought I heard you say he was not in the jail?
Yes, he was.
But he hasn't been in our jail? He was before this time?
He was in our jail. He was in our custody.
What was he in custody, Sheriff? Can you talk a little bit about just the procedure? I know, for example, Cook County, where we're from, courthouse bail, courtroom deputies, as they're called there, jail officers do not carry weapons. Who carries weapons here? Was this unusual?
No, our court officers, our deputy assigned to the courtrooms do have a weapon along with the bailiffs. So all the individuals that were involved were armed.
Where was the woman who was injured, and what was she doing?
And we're going to lock that down as the investigation continues, but in that general facility by the court by the courtroom.
Is it fair to say these two bailiffs were ambushed by Gordon as he ran down a hallway, or was it in his courtroom?
Well, it was outside of the courtroom where this occurred.
Was the woman hurt by gunfire or something else?
She was hurt by gunfire.
Sheriff, what felony charges was the suspect in for? What specific felony charges was he facing?
Well, we'll have that. We'll have more for you on that at a later time when we release that. But he was here on several felony charges.
Were there handcuffs or not, and why?
Well, he was being escorted into the courtroom. There was we had no information that he was going to be violent, and not everybody that goes into the courtroom is handcuffed.
Will that change from here on out?
Well, we will look at our procedures and evaluate them as we move people from the holding cells into the courtrooms.
Was he being arraigned today? Was he being formally charged?
He was there for an arraignment or for some court proceeding, and we'll have more of that information at a later time
Sheriff,
too.
you think this was a jailbreak?
Yes, at all indication is that he was trying to break out of jail.
And did this take place in a public area, or was it in an area behind that the public doesn't have access to?
It was in an area that the public does not have access to.
There were indications that he tried to get back into the courtroom from that area. Is that true?
Yes, after he exchanged gunfire or shot the deputy and shot and killed the two bailiffs, he went into the court area and took several hostage for a short period of time until he tried to leave through another door, and that's when the other two bailiffs confronted him, and that's when he was shot and killed.
How long did that take, do you think, between the time that he got the gun and was killed?
Probably less than 5 minutes.
Do you know who shot and killed this man?
We're not releasing that at this time.
Was it an officer though?
It was court bailiffs.
Sheriff, was the hostages that he took, were they court employees or people attending court?
Well, that's what we're doing the interviews now. Some of them were employees, some of them were citizens.
How many hostages?
We're getting those details as we move on with the investigation.
Has this man been in and out of jail before?
Yeah.
Is he a repeat offender?
In an effort to allow, we want to make sure we have the accurate information. The investigation is ongoing at this time. We do have copies of the information here that's been provided with the biographic information for the court officers and the suspect, but at this time, we're going to let our investigators do their job and make sure we have accurate information to give you. So at this point, the information we have, we've got packets for you. We're going to let the investigation take its course and no further.
Say anything to the bailiffs? Did he yell at them?
Well, that's something that will come out later during the investigation.
So total elapsed time from getting the gun to the time that the other bailiff dropped him was 5 minutes.
Well, we don't have that.
That's-
A lot of these questions are going to be done in the investigation. We're going to let the investigators do their
Yeah,
do their job.
it could be longer, so we'll have those details at a later time once we put it all together.
This says attempted to take hostage.
The bad guy?
Yes.
Okay, how will we get that?
Well, we can have that available for all of you.
Are the guns in a protected holster of any kind?
Yep.
How difficult is it to get that gun?
How did he what?
How difficult is it to get that gun to a deputy or a bailiff?
Well, it's difficult, but he was able to do it, unfortunately, and we will look into all that and
One
piece
more
together
question.
what occurred back there when the fight occurred.
It says attempted to take hostages. Did he take hostages or did he attempt to take hostages?
Well, he attempted for a short period of time. He had people back in the hallway.
Is it customary to have two 60-year-old men escort a felonious criminal to court?
The deputy is not 60 years old. He's 41. They were just assisting. Yeah, they are bailiffs in charge of helping in the
Who
courtrooms.
was in closer proximity? The deputy?
The deputy was.
He was.
Yes.
Bailiffs both
That's
shoot
what
him,
this-
sheriff? One shoot him.
Yeah, we'll have more further on that at a later time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have photos of the?
Yeah, and I just want to comment on our prayers are with the families of Joe Zangaro and Ron Kinzel. They were well-respected people in our community. They had been in law enforcement for over 40 years, and they were just loving guys, and their life was tragically ended today. and we'll sort those details out and try to deal with our loss as we move forward throughout the weeks. So thank you.
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 Lieutenant Johnson.
Berrien County Sheriff Paul Bailey with that update tonight as we learn the names of the two bailiffs shot and killed at the courthouse today. Joe Van Gerel, 61 years old, the head of the courthouse security there. Ron Kinsel, 63 years old. Ron Kinsel, he was a bailiff employed there since 2005, Sheriff Bailey tells us. We also learned that Deputy James Atterbury, 41 years old, in intensive care, taken out of surgery to an injury to his arm. Also, the suspect identified as well as 35-year-old Larry Gordon of Coloma, who was an inmate, also of numerous felony charges he was facing. That's why he was in that courthouse today. Of course, a very sad, tragic day for St. Joseph, for all of Berrien County. We're going to continue to get updates on this evening. We have SBT2 news coming up tonight at 10 o'clock, also WSBT 22 at 11. But once again, an update from Berrien County Sheriff Paul Bailey on a very tragic day. We'll send you back to programming now.
We want to begin with some breaking news here first at 4. We have been following this afternoon. Reports of 3 people killed at the Berrien County Courthouse. That includes 2 bailiffs and the gunman. 3 people killed at the Berrien County Courthouse, which is in St. Joseph, Michigan. We have been following this. This was a shooting that had happened earlier this afternoon. The first reports came into our newsroom at 2:30 this afternoon. If you know the area there at the courthouse there in Berrien County in St. Joseph, it is in the downtown area of St. Joseph, Michigan, right there on the bluff. Now, we're being told that the courthouse is secure. We're being told that by the governor now asking for prayers by all of those affected. We are awaiting a news conference. We're going to be briefed by police on the situation and what is happening. Any moment, we're expecting to get new information about what has happened, and we're going to be breaking in here to give you that. You're seeing the news conference as it's beginning here. That is Sheriff Paul Bailey, as we are going to listen in here to what he has to say.
All right, Sheriff Paul Bailey, I stand here with a heavy heart today. What occurred at the courthouse. About 2:25, we had a disturbance on the 3rd floor of the courthouse. A person has shot 2 bailiffs. They're both deceased, and shot a deputy sheriff who is at the hospital right now being treated in the emergency room. The suspect has been shot and killed, and we'll be having more information in the future. We don't have all the details about what happened or what occurred or how we got the weapon. We will be investigating that along with the Homicide Task Force, the Sheriff's Department, along with other detectives from other departments, along with the Michigan State Police and St. Joe Public Safety. Will be investigating this together. We have the Michigan State Police Crime Lab coming down to process the scene. So we ask people to pray for the families of the deceased, and we will have further information for you once I get more from the investigators about what occurred today.
Do you know the deputy sheriff's condition?
He's in stable condition at this time.
Are there any other people injured?
Yeah, there's several other people in stable condition at the hospital.
Was there any kind of hostage situation or anything? What did people inside do?
Well, they went for shelter once the shooting occurred, and other brave officers were able to come to their rescue and take the shooter down.
Which hospital?
Everybody's at Lakeland Regional Hospital in St. Joe.
What was the suspect in court for today?
I don't have that information right now. We'll have more in the next press release. Right now, we were trying to secure the scene, and I was trying to check on my deputy and then also make proper notification of the family of the deceased bailiffs.
So many crews responded. How many people were on hand?
Well, everybody in the area responded. All the police agencies did.
Some of the injured are civilians,
Yes.
and you said several?
Yeah, we'll have more details at the next press release. I got to put it all together. So I can't give you any further information than that because I don't have it myself at this time. So we'll have another press conference out here at 6 o'clock tonight.
ago that you said the shooter is deceased. Can you give us any information on the shooter?
No, not at this time. At the next press conference, I will.
It sounds like he was in court today, though, for something?
Well, that's what I'll find out.
Okay.
Right now, I didn't get those details because I was trying to concentrate on the injured and my friends.
Do you know how long it took from when the shots started to when he was brought down?
No, I do not.
And you mentioned your friends. How are you guys feeling emotionally right now?
Terrible. Terrible. Thank you. I'll have more information at 6 o'clock for you. Thank you.
Well, there we are listening to Sheriff Paul Bailey, obviously a very shaken Paul Bailey. And what we are looking at here now is video of when emergency responders were able to first get on scene and take a look at what they were dealing with when they got there. Now you can see the updated numbers there. Three people are dead. That includes 2 bailiffs and 1 gunman. We are now just learning from that news conference that we were just listening into. There are other shooting victims, several victims, in fact, is what we've been told. Some of the injured are civilians. We do know that one deputy bailiff is at the ER being treated, and we're being told is in stable condition. They're not exactly sure what has happened here. All of that part of a very massive investigation that is taking place right now. Other brave officers were the ones who took that shooter down. Another update on what happened there is going to be taking place at 6 o'clock tonight. We will be there for that, and we will, of course, be following much of this throughout the evening. But police going to be giving us a lot of details as they, I'm sure, are going to be learning what's been happening. But they're trying to wrap their minds around what has happened there, too. But what we know now is that 3 people are dead, including 2 bailiffs. The gunman is dead as well.
First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Rick Shutt. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 5.
Well, we are following 2 breaking news stories right now. One out of Notre Dame involving a lawsuit.
The other is in Berrien County, where there's been a deadly shooting at the county courthouse. This all started around 2:30 this afternoon in St. Joseph. And at this hour, we know 3 people have died. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon has been live on the scene all afternoon. Caitlin, it's still a very active scene there right now.
Yes, there's a lot going on. We're not exactly sure what happened inside of the courtroom, but there are a lot of people outside. Emergency personnel from all over the county have responded to the scene. State police, tribal police, even the DNR are here, and there's a helicopter hovering overhead. What we do know is that 2 bailiffs were killed. A sheriff's deputy was also injured, and he's being treated at Lakeland Hospital. He's in stable condition. There were other injuries, but Sheriff Paul Bailey isn't able to say how many. The shooter was shot and killed by officers, and obviously this is a hard day for officers in Berrien County.
I stand here with a heavy heart today, so we ask people to pray for the families of the deceased.
Coming up at 6, Sheriff Bailey will be giving another press conference. He says he's going to keep us updated on all the information he gets as he gets it.
All right, Caitlin, thanks very much.
The suspect has been shot and killed.
Now, that was Berrien County Sheriff Paul Bailey you just heard from, speaking a short time ago about the shootings at the Berrien County Courthouse.
He confirmed 3 people were killed, 2 bailiffs, and the suspect. Another officer was also injured in this. We do know civilians were hurt in all of this as well. WSBT 22's Patrick Roth is also on the scene. What's going on there right now? What can you tell us?
Jennifer, you can see it behind me. There's still actually a lot of police activity. There's a couple of sheriff's deputies in camouflage fatigues right behind me. And earlier, just a couple minutes ago, we saw a couple sheriff deputies walking in with evidence bags. The courthouse is still on lockdown, but we don't know whether or not there are people in there. They haven't told us that yet. They also don't know how much longer the courthouse is expected to be on lockdown. Although they did allow some people who are in the actual courtroom to leave there, sheltering at a church down the street. And that's caused a lot of concern for people who have had family in the courthouse. They do know their relatives are safe, but it was a very scary couple of minutes.
Yeah, I seen them coming out, then all of a sudden I just heard cop car after cop car after cop car. I mean, it didn't quit. So.
I mean, I'd imagine, what were you thinking when you were
I was horrified. I went over there and they told me to go back to my car, and I'm like, I'm not going back to my car. My daughter and my wife's in there.
Now, Mike told me it was about 45 minutes before he could confirm that his family members were okay, but they are okay. Now, several victims are being treated at Lakeland Hospital. We don't know how many victims, but they say any concerned relatives can call Lakeland Hospital for updates on them. And like we told you earlier at 5, we're expecting an update from Sheriff Paul Bailey coming up at 6 o'clock. And stay with us here at WSBT. We'll be bringing you all the latest as soon as we get it online and at WSBT.com. Live in Berrien County, Patrick Roth, WSBT 22 News.
We are also getting reaction in from leaders in Southwest Michigan. This statement in tonight from Republican Congressman Fred Upton, quote, "What occurred today in my hometown breaks my heart. My thoughts are with our entire community, our friends and neighbors. This tragic event reminds us all too well that our law enforcement officers have their lives on the line every day, not knowing what that day will bring. We have lost 2 very able public servants, and we all grieve for them and their families. As we learn more about this horrific situation, one thing is clear. We must do better to prevent these types of tragedies from occurring." And as more reaction comes in and as we continue to learn more about what's happened in Berrien County, we will, of course, be bringing that to you live on the air and online. And as we just heard from Patrick Roth, we are expecting to learn much more, providing another live update for you coming to us from the police, and that'll be coming to us at the top of the hour at 6 o'clock, so stay tuned for continuing coverage on that.
First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Rick Schutt. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 6.
And we want to get an update to the breaking news that we have been following all afternoon. 2 bailiffs are dead and a deputy sheriff is in the hospital. It's following a shooting at the Berrien County Courthouse.
That's right. Police just moments away from holding another news conference to update us on the latest on their investigation. We know the gunman is dead. This all happened around 2:30. The Berrien County Sheriff's telling us now that a civilian was also injured in this and being treated at a hospital. There is a massive investigation going on right now. What you're looking at here is video of when emergency responders first arrived on the scene there. There are things we still do not know, and some of these things we are hoping to have answers to when we are being briefed here at our second briefing by the sheriff. We still do not know who the gunman is. We don't know exactly what happened that led to this shooting, or how the suspect got the weapon.
We know at this point this all began on the 3rd floor at the courthouse at about 2:25 this afternoon. There has been a heavy police presence there all afternoon. We can tell you that the Sheriff's Department is investigating this, as is the St. Joseph Police Department and the Michigan State Police. Once again, 2 bailiffs shot and killed. The suspect is dead. A civilian and a deputy sheriff in the hospital. We know the deputy sheriff is listed in stable condition. They are at Lakeland Regional Hospital in St. Joseph.
That's right. A number of prominent politicians are taking to Twitter to share their condolences right now. Donald Trump tweeting, quote, "Thoughts and prayers with the victims and their families, along with everyone at the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph, Michigan."
Elsewhere, Michigan Governor Rick Snyder tweeting, quote, "Please join me in praying for those affected."
And Congressman Fred Upton tweets, quote, "This tragic event reminds us all too well that our law enforcement officers have their lives on the line every day."
Of course, we're waiting for that press conference up there in St. Joseph. Stay with WSBT 22, both on air and online, as we continue to follow this developing story. We'll cut in as needed with new updates as we hear them. And remember, you can find full coverage on our WSBT 22 News app. Back now to our top story, the breaking news in St. Joseph. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon has been there all afternoon. She's been on scene up there in St. Joseph for hours now.
Yeah, Caitlin, any indication of what to expect here from sheriff's deputies and sheriffs up there?
We're actually waiting right now for a press conference to start, but it is a very active scene right now. Officers from multiple agencies are here. Even the DNR is present. What we do know is that 3 men have died as a result of this shooting, including the shooter. 2 bailiffs are also dead, along with a sheriff's deputy who is in the hospital being treated for injuries right now. And as you look around you, you can see family members waiting to see what's happening to their family inside of the courthouse. There are a lot of people people out here waiting just to find out what's happening, and we're waiting for that information as well.
Conference on the courthouse shooting that happened here about a little over 3 hours ago.
Caitlin, have you seen many people kind of hanging around, or are they keeping people back?
In Berrien County, Michigan, along with the suspect. At this point, what we know, and we're waiting for absolute.
Obviously, Caitlin's having trouble.
All right, want to go back to the live pictures here that we've been waiting for, this update. Berrien County Sheriff Paul Bailey is talking.
We had an incident occur at the courthouse when an inmate was trying to be moved from a cell by a deputy and a bailiff. A fight occurred with that inmate on the way to the courtroom, and that inmate was able to disarm one of the officers. We are still investigating to find out what officer, and was able to get that gun and then shoot the deputy and then shoot and kill 2 bailiffs. He then shot a civilian in the arm and was taken down by 2 other bailiffs that came to render aid, along with several other officers. We will be releasing their names later tonight after we make sure that all family has been notified of their passing. We have counselors coming in to talk to employees, and due to this incident, the courthouse will be closed tomorrow. There'll be no court in Berrien County tomorrow. So right now we have all of our detectives, local detectives, county detectives, the state police detectives interviewing all of the witnesses that were there. And we have the Michigan State Police Crime Lab here to process the scene. As soon as the scene is processed, the victims will be removed to Grand Rapids for an autopsy. So if I can answer any questions, that's what I have to say at this time.
Can you give us the history, sir, of those of your colleagues that were lost today? How many years have they been bailiffs, deputies? And what can you tell us about the inmate? Why was he, I think you said he, why was he in custody?
He was in custody for several charges. We'll give you all that update at our next press conference. We'll have all that information for you at that time, and we'll have the information on the 2 bailiffs that were killed at that time also. They've been, both bailiffs have been law enforcement officers for a long time, and they've been bailiffs for the last 10 years.
Can you give us more information about, more details about how he was able to get that gun?
Well, that's what we're investigating right now.
Sure.
So all the detectives are piecing that together from all the cameras that we have at the courthouse, and I'll have more details here in the next couple hours to share with you on how that occurred.
Where did the fight take place, Sheriff?
The fight took place right outside the holding cell at the courthouse. As they were getting him out of the holding cell, they secured the door, and then the inmate started fighting with the deputy and bailiff, and that's when the gun was able to be taken away. He was trying to escape, and that's when he fatally wounded the 2 bailiffs.
As people have been leaving the courthouse, state police have been stopping them, asking them questions and writing down information. What can you tell us about what they're asking people who are in the courthouse?
Well, we want to make sure that we've interviewed anybody that was in the courthouse, so we're asking them if they've been interviewed yet. So the detectives are interviewing all the courthouse employees that were on the 3rd floor, and we're releasing everybody else that did not see anything. So we want to make sure that everybody that was on that 3rd floor gets interviewed, and that we have all the information to piece everything back together of what occurred.
You said a civilian was shot. I'm sorry, a civilian. Was it a male or a female civilian? And who was that person?
We'll have more information at the next press conference on that also.
Was the shooter handcuffed or restrained in any way?
That's we'll find out at the next. As soon as I can meet with the investigators. The area is cordoned off because it's a crime scene, and we're not going in there to look at that now until the Michigan State Police Crime Lab gets here.
Has everyone been released from the building now at this point? Is everyone released?
Yeah, the only people that are there right now are people that still need to be interviewed, but everybody else was sent home.
Can
Was shooting how many people were inside the courthouse at the time?
The shooting was not inside a courtroom, and it was in a corridor leading from the holding cell to the courtroom.
Was it Sheriff, sentencing or arraignment, or why was he here?
That's what we'll have more for you. I haven't piecing that together. He was going over for some court proceeding from the jail, and we'll have more information about exactly what that proceeding was at the next conference.
Sheriff, how many civilians were taken?
Pardon me?
How many civilians were taken to the hospital?
Just one.
How many were inside the courthouse and also down?
Oh, the courthouse was doing regular business there, you know. So all the employees were there, and I don't know how many civilians were there doing business.
Who shot and killed the inmate?
We will release that later on after I have all the information from the investigators. As soon as I piece that all together, I can give that to you at the next press conference.
So what is protocol?
Right now, your emotional toll, because obviously this has touched you and somebody who you've obviously worked with. Can you talk about just what this has meant to you and the officers and deputies who work with you?
Well, our hearts are torn apart. They were our friends. They were my colleagues. I have known them for over 30 years. So it's a sad day. So what I'd like to do is the governor came down to give his support, and I'd like to turn it over to him now to say a couple words.
Could you say your name?
Sheriff Paul Bailey.
The deputy that was injured, how is he or she?
He is in stable condition at this time.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Governor? Thank you, Sheriff. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to be here to support a terrible day in a wonderful community. This was an awful act to have happen today. I want to reinforce the fact that we're being supportive in every way possible with the Michigan State Police in terms of helping support a good sheriff's department in terms of their investigation, the crime lab, also with counseling resources. I ask that all Michiganders put your prayers out, your thoughts and prayers with the families of the lost law enforcement officials, and that we give our thoughts and prayers to the wounded. This is a particularly tough time for law enforcement, so I ask that everyone reach out and try to be as supportive of law enforcement across the state and across the country as possible in a difficult case like this. This is a terrible event to have happen, and we need to rally together to support one another. And you can see that from the community members with me and the law enforcement members with me, but we should all be standing together to say, how do we support one another, and how do we work to make sure these things don't happen? So thank you.
Governor, why did you decide to come out today?
For what I just said. It's as simple as that. There's no other motive other than saying, this is terrible. And we need to be supportive of law enforcement. We need to support the families that have lost someone. So I thought it important to be here. And we'll continue to provide support, whatever they need, to help them get through this terrible tragedy.
Governor, thank you. Sheriff, can I ask one more question, please? What is this is difficult, I know, but what is the protocol for an inmate or someone when being walked from, like, the holding area to a courtroom or vice versa?
Well,
In terms of handcuffs and...
yeah, well, that's what we're going to determine how they were escorted in. They do it many times every day. They're moving inmates constantly between all the courtrooms. So we will, once we have more information, we'll know how he was removed from the cell and was being taken into the courtroom.
Are they supposed to be handcuffed, though? That's what I'm
Well,
asking.
it just depends on the situation.
Do we know how many shots were fired?
No, not at this time.
How many court officers were working in the courthouse today?
There was 10.
Is that enough? Is that how it normally is?
Yes.
What was a civilian doing outside of the holding cell?
That's after the inmate broke free from shooting the two bailiffs and then came out into the hallway where civilians would be when he shot one of them.
What's a bailiff?
Bailiff is a court officer that works for there's a bailiff assigned to each one of the judges.
Sheriff, in the wake of what happened in Dallas, is there anything that you'd like to tell the community right now?
Well, this is a great community, and I've been overwhelmed with calls and texts supporting us. It's a tragedy. You never know when something like this is going to happen. I can tell you that the deputies and the bailiffs are well trained, and it's one of those unfortunate situations that occurred. So we need prayers, and the families need your prayers especially. and we will move forward. This is a great community, and they will stand behind us, and we will continue to move forward.
Sheriff, you mentioned more information later on. Do you have any idea what time that press conference will be, that next update?
Sometime before 9 o'clock.
Can you mention at all just about the intent?
Excuse me?
Just in terms of, what was he prosecuted for? What was he being put away for?
That's what I have my investigators gathering. We'll release all that at the next press conference.
Did he make any statements as he was running from the deputy?
That's what I'm going to find out.
And how many deputies or bailiffs usually transfer an inmate into the courtroom and out?
Two.
Thank you for speaking with us.
Yeah.
You will let us know about the next update.
Yes, I will.
Will
All
it
right.
be right here on this same location?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Mohammed, you wanted to say a few words?
There you have it. Sheriff Paul Bailey addressing the media on this tragic day, what he is calling a sad day up there in St. Joseph, Michigan in Berrien County. We also heard from Governor Rick Snyder, who's offering his thoughts and prayers and his support to that community.
You know, this is the first time that we've been given some sort of indication as to what transpired inside the courthouse. Sheriff Bailey telling us that a fight occurred outside what he's calling a holding cell inside that courthouse, where essentially an inmate was being held, and as one of the deputies and one of the bailiffs was trying to take that inmate outside of that holding cell, there was some sort of a fight that took place. The gunman, well, he essentially became the gunman. The suspect got a hold of one of the guns. We're not sure exactly whose gun he was able to get, and that's when that fight occurred. He got the gun and started firing it.
Now they have counselors coming in to help with support. The courthouse, of course, is closed right now. They have not named yet the two bailiffs who have been killed or the suspect as well. Of course, we're going to have much more online and on air tonight at 10 on SBT2 and then again at 11 on WSBT 22
Another
News.
update we're being told will come tonight too. We'll be right back.
Just letting you know, it sounds like we got a report of shots fired at the courthouse.
The first calls from dispatch about a shooting at the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph. Tonight, the chilling calls as police try to take down the suspect.
Shots fired. Shots have been fired. Shots fired. One down. One down. Shots fired. One down. Clear. Officer down. Officer down. Clear. Officer down. Third floor, just off the elevator. CPR in progress. We're doing CPR on 2 right now. And we're going to probably need 2 or 3 ambulances. Is the shooter still at large? No, shooter is down.
Here is what we know tonight. 3 people are dead, including the suspect. The 2 victims are court officers 63-year-old Ron Kinzel and 61-year-old Joe Zangaro. Zangaro was head of courthouse security. 2 other people were hurt, a sheriff's deputy, 41-year-old James Atterbury, and a civilian woman who has not been identified. They sustained non-life-threatening injuries and are at the hospital. Atterbury is in the intensive care unit after surgery to his arm. Police say the gunman was this man, 45-year-old Larry Gordon from Coloma. He was a prisoner being taken to the courthouse. He fought with those officers outside the holding cell. He was able to get a gun from one of the officers and fired the fatal shots before officers killed him. Now, new details are still breaking at this hour. Police just wrapped up another news conference a short time ago. WSBT 22's Patrick Roth has been following this story all evening. He's live at the courthouse for us. And Patrick, we're learning more about how this all unfolded.
Yeah, Rick, we know now that the shooter was not handcuffed at the time that fight broke out. And Sheriff Paul Bailey said that's because that when he was in the county jail, he didn't have a history of violence. Bailey also said that by all indications, this appears to be an escape attempt. Now, there's still a lot of questions we don't have answers to, and one of them is, how could something like this happen in a place like here? Now, it's happened here. As the investigation continues into just how an inmate was able to disarm and kill 2 police officers and wound 2 more people, the reality is sinking in that the unthinkable has now struck close to home.
We need prayers, and the families need your prayers especially, and we will move forward. This is a great community, and they will stand behind us, and we will continue to move forward.
A painful part of moving forward will be piecing together exactly what happened. While the whole picture isn't totally clear yet, some parts are.
A fight occurred with that inmate on the way to the courtroom, and that inmate was able to disarm one of the officers.
The inmate was then able to use that gun to kill 2 bailiffs and wound the sheriff's deputy and a civilian.
Our hearts are torn apart. They were our friends. They were my colleagues. I have known them for over 30 years. So it's a sad day.
Now, Gordon's ex-wife told a Grand Rapids TV station that she actually spoke to her ex-husband on Sunday, and there was no indication that he was planning any attack. Jessica Gordon says her ex-husband, quote, got mixed up with the wrong people. Now, there's still a lot of work that investigators need to do, but actually, Rick, you can see it right here behind me. The police tape that was up surrounding the courthouse all afternoon, that's actually down now. And I also asked Sheriff Bailey, in the wake of what happened in Dallas, is there anything that he would like the community to know? And he said that he's actually been overwhelmed by the amount of support through phone calls and text messages that he's gotten. He said it's just one of those tragic things that you never know when it's going to happen.
And as he said earlier today, the sheriff, a very sad day for that community. Patrick, thank you so much. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder headed to St. Joseph when he heard about the shooting. Snyder says his heart aches for the victims' families and the entire city of St. Joseph.
I ask that all Michiganders put your prayers out, your thoughts and prayers with the families of the lost law enforcement officials, and that we give our thoughts and prayers to the wounded.
Leaders from Southwest Michigan are also reacting tonight. Republican Congressman Fred Upton says, quote, "What occurred today in my hometown breaks my heart. My thoughts are with our entire community, our friends and neighbors. This tragic event reminds us all too well that our law enforcement officers have their lives on the line every day, not knowing what that day will bring. We have lost 2 very able public servants, and we all grieve for them and their families. As we learn more about this horrific situation, one thing is clear: we must do better to prevent these types of tragedies from occurring." Now, Republican State Senator John Prost of St. Joseph says, "At the time of the incident, I was at my constituent service office just a block away from the courthouse. I can attest to the professionalism and outright heroism of law enforcement agencies, as well as first responders from all over Southwest Michigan. These men and women get up every day and put themselves in harm's way in order to preserve and protect our community. Today, they were met with violence, and apparently several have lost their lives." Now, the shooting has shaken many who live in the St. Joe community. Others weren't directly impacted, but all are shocked by what's taken place in their community. WSBT 22's Heather Black continues our team coverage tonight. Heather, people there are very concerned.
That's right. I spoke with several people tonight in downtown who said that they were shocked by the incident. I even spoke to one man who said that he was about a mile away when the shooting occurred. Now, he said that it was a sad situation, but he fears that people won't remember it in the long term. People who had relatives inside the building say their family members told them they took cover anywhere they could. The husband of one woman says she called him at 1 o'clock and told him someone was shooting.
The only thing that they heard was, loud popping going out in the hall, and so they immediately, over the intercom, hit everybody to, lock the doors and go in the secluded area and do not come out until they are told. She phoned me when she was in the bathroom, so I instructed her, I'm glad you're okay, but get off the phone, because the shooter was still at large at the particular time, so I didn't want him, to hear the phone calls or hear her talking to me.
Things shouldn't be happening. But yeah, we see them happening everywhere. I think that we are starting to let our guard down. We've become very, very complacent.
And when I got here, there were people outside who knew that they had family members inside. One man told us that his wife and daughter were inside, and he didn't want to leave the scene until that he knew that they were safe. And he had to wait for about 45 minutes, but found out they were okay.
Can't even imagine, Heather. Obviously a very tense time waiting for that word from the courthouse. Heather, thank you so much. Because the investigation is just beginning, the courthouse will be closed tomorrow. Counselors will be brought in to help courthouse workers. Again, 3 people are dead, including the gunman. 2 others are in the hospital, including 1 civilian. And be sure to stay with WSBT 22 as we continue to follow this breaking news. We'll have the latest information through the night on our website, WSBT.com, and tomorrow on WSBT 22 first in the morning. We'll have live reports from St. Joseph starting at 5.
First, fast, accurate. You're watching WSBT 22 First in the Morning with Bob Montgomery and Leanne Tokars.
Just letting you know, it sounds like we got a report of shots fired at the courthouse.
This morning, an inside look at the tear from inside the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph.
Police in the courthouse describing what was happening yesterday about 2:15 in the afternoon. An inmate takes an officer's weapon and starts firing. 2 bailiffs are dead. Police killed that inmate.
63-year-old Ron Kinzel and 61-year-old Joe Zangaro were the court officers killed. 2 other people were hurt and will survive.
One is 41-year-old Sheriff's Deputy Jim Atterbury, shot in the arm. The other, a woman who was not a police official, was also shot in the arm. Now, these are some of the sounds of the chaos happening inside that courthouse. Now, some of this may be disturbing to some of you.
Shots fired. Shots have been fired. Shots fired. One down. One down. Shots fired. One down. Clear. Officer down. Officer down. Clear. Officer down.
3rd floor, just off the elevator. CPR in progress.
We're doing CPR on 2 right now. And we're going to probably need 2 or 3 ambulances. Is the shooter still at large? No, shooter is down.
And let's go live now to the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph. WSBT 22's Kristen Bean has been digging into the details of what happened.
Kristen, good morning. What's the scene there now?
Well, today is going to be a heartbreaking day as many people here come to grips with what happened. Take a look behind me. You can see a Berrien County Sheriff's Department vehicle, now a memorial outside the Berrien County Sheriff's office this morning. Flowers have been laid on it. There are signs with the black banner over the police badge. Here's what we know. Police say Larry Gordon was being escorted from a holding cell to a courtroom when a fight broke out. They say he was able to get a deputy's gun, shoot the deputy, and kill 2 bailiffs before he attempted to take hostages in the courtroom. He was shot and killed by responding officers. The officers shot and killed were longtime members of law enforcement here in Berrien County. 61-year-old Joe Zangaro was the head of courthouse security. He had previously retired from the Michigan State Police as a post commander from Bridgman. And 63-year-old Ron Kinzel worked at the courthouse since 2005 after retiring from Benton Township Police. He's also an Army veteran. 41-year-old Sheriff's Deputy Jim Atterbury is recovering from a gunshot wound in the arm. And as we mentioned earlier, a woman was also shot in the arm. All of this happened just before 2:30 yesterday on the 3rd floor of the courthouse. Police say it doesn't appear that Gordon was cuffed at the time, but they had no warning signs. They say he was being held on several felony charges. Gordon's ex-wife told a Grand Rapids TV station she spoke with him Sunday. She said there was no indication that he was planning an attack. Coming up at 5:30 this morning, you're going to hear from people whose family was inside the courthouse when all of this unfolded. Live here in a very sad Berrien County, Kristen Bean, WSBT 22 News.
Kristen, thanks very much. In the minutes and the hours following the shooting, reaction poured in from local leaders.
Michigan Governor Rick Snyder immediately drove to St. Joe. He says his heart aches for the victims, their families, and the entire city of St. Joseph.
This is a terrible event to have happen, and we need to rally together to support one another. And you can see that from the community members with me and the law enforcement members with me, but we should all be standing together to say, how do we support one another, and how do we work to make sure these things don't happen?
Republican Congressman Fred Upton also weighed in on this tragedy. He says, quote, "What occurred today in my hometown breaks my heart. My thoughts are with our entire community, our friends and neighbors. This tragic event reminds us all too well that our law enforcement officers have on their lives on the line every day, not knowing what that day will bring. We have lost 2 very able public servants, and we all grieve for them and their families. As we learn more about this horrific situation, one thing is clear. We must do better to prevent these types of tragedies from occurring."
And Republican State Senator John Prose of St. Joseph says, quote, "At the time of the incident, I was at my constituent service office just a block away from the courthouse. I can attest to the professionalism and outright heroism of law enforcement agencies, as well as first responders from all over Southwest Michigan. These men and women get up every day and put themselves in harm's way in order to serve and protect our community. Today, they were met with violence, and apparently several have lost their lives." Make sure to stay with WSBT 22 as we continue to follow the very latest developments on this investigation. Right now, Kristen Bean is in St. Joseph gathering more information. She will have another live report in our next half hour. You can also find the newest details on our website and on our WSBT 22 News app.
First, fast, accurate. You're watching WSBT 22 First in the Morning with Bob Montgomery and Leanne Tokars.
Priority at the courthouse. Man on the second floor with a gun. We got hostages.
Clear. Shots fired. Shots have been fired.
Shots fired. One down. One down.
That's the sound of terror as a tragedy rocks our community.
This morning, the investigation into a deadly shooting at the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph is really just getting started. Today, the courthouse will be closed for that investigation.
Authorities digging deeper into the shooting that left 2 bailiffs dead before police shot and killed the suspect. The first court officer killed is 63-year-old Ron Kinzel, the other 61-year-old Joe Zangaro. Zangaro was the head of courthouse security.
2 other people were hurt in this incident. One is 41-year-old James Atterbury, who is a sheriff's deputy. The other, a woman who's not a police official. She has not yet been identified. Both have non-life-threatening injuries. They're at the hospital. Atterbury, in fact, in intensive care after having surgery on his arm.
Now, the man police say is responsible for the shooting, 45-year-old Larry Gordon from Coloma. Gordon was an inmate being taken to the courthouse. He fought with officers outside the holding cell. Gordon was able to get a gun from one of the officers. He then fired the fatal shots, tried to take hostages, before other officers quickly fired and killed him. WSBT 22's Kristen Bean is live at the courthouse this morning.
Good morning, Bob and Leanne. Yeah, Gordon's ex-wife said she spoke with him Sunday, and he gave her no indication that he was planning this sort of an attack. She said he was an amazing man who got mixed up with the wrong people.
The only thing that they heard was, loud popping going out in the hall. And
Leroy Lane's wife was inside the Berrien County Courthouse when a normal day turned deadly.
So they immediately, over the intercom, hit everybody to, lock the doors and go in the secluded area and do not come out until they are told.
Clear. Shots fired. Shots have been fired.
Shots fired. One down.
Authorities were escorting inmate 44-year-old Larry Gordon of Coloma from a holding cell to a courtroom when a fight broke out. Police say Gordon disarmed an officer, shot and killed 2 bailiffs, and then attempted to take hostages before he was gunned down by another officer.
Our hearts are torn apart. They were our friends. They were my colleagues. I have known them for over 30 years.
The deceased have been identified as 61-year-old Joseph Zangaro, the head of courthouse security, and 63-year-old Ronald Kinzel. The 2 had worked in law enforcement for years. 41-year-old Sheriff's Deputy James Atterbury is recovering from a gunshot wound in the arm. A woman was also shot in the arm. As news of what happened got out, family members of people who work inside the courthouse wanted answers as well.
People were being evacuated from the 4th floor, and I'm like, why are you being evacuated from the 4th floor? They said, you need to get out of here. There's a person with a gun. I'm like, well, I'm not leaving. My wife and daughter's on the 4th floor.
Now investigators continue the tough task of piecing together what happened and hopefully begin the healing.
Our prayers are with the families of Joe Zangaro and Ron Kinzel. They were well-respected people in our community. They had been in law enforcement for over 40 years, and they were just loving guys, and their life was tragically ended today. And we'll sort those details out and try to deal with our loss as we move forward throughout the weeks.
And you can see here a memorial is growing this morning for Zangaro and Kinzel outside of the Berrien County Sheriff's Department. A car there with flowers. We've seen a couple people come, take pictures, pay their respects. We do know the Berrien County Courthouse announced they will be closed all day today. Of course, we'll have latest both online and on air throughout the day today on WSBT 22. Live here in Berrien County, Kristen Bean, WSBT 22 News.
Kristen, thank you. And here's a recap of what we know right now. Because the investigation is just beginning, as Kristen just mentioned, the courthouse will be closed today. Counselors will be brought in to help courthouse workers.
And once again, 3 people are dead, including the gunman. 2 others are in the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Be sure to stay with WSBT 22 as we continue to follow this tragic story throughout the day. You can also download the WSBT 22 News app for updates on the go.
Now at midday.
Shots fired.
The sounds of chaos in yesterday's courthouse shooting in St. Joe. The police department and the whole community coming to grips with 2 dead officers and another wounded.
Now, as we gather here this morning, I know that we are all thinking of the 2 bailiffs who were killed.
The nation's top law enforcement official now responding to the shooting that claimed more officers in uniform. And breaking news, nearly 24 dead when 2 Italian trains slammed into each other head on.
First, fast, accurate. You're watching WSBT 22 News at midday.
In just 2 hours, the community is coming together in St. Joseph to honor 2 court bailiffs killed yesterday in a Berrien County courthouse shooting. A vigil and march are planned at 2 this afternoon for bailiffs Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro, killed 24 hours ago in this shooting with an inmate who was killed in return fire. Now this morning, a congressional hearing, the U.S. Attorney General also talked about this shooting. We will hear her words in a moment, but first we're continuing our live team coverage of this tragedy. WSBT 22's Kristen Bean is in St. Joseph. She's been there all morning long, and she joins us now live just outside the courthouse. Kristen, you are learning some new details about what happened just before the shots were fired and about the inmate who fired those shots.
That's right. We learned Larry Gordon was in the Berrien County Jail on charges of domestic violence and sexual misconduct. Now, the Berrien County Sheriff said they were familiar with Gordon, but he had always been cooperative in the past. A big detail, though, that we learned today was a correction from what investigators had said yesterday, that Gordon was handcuffed during the incident, and he was still handcuffed when his body was removed from the courthouse yesterday night. The sun came up this morning over a somber St. Joe, revealing the memorial for 2 fallen officers.
And they were great friends, great people, loved their families, loved their children, and our hearts are broken.
61-year-old Joe Zangaro, head of courthouse security and a retired state police officer, and 63-year-old Ron Kinzel, who worked courthouse security for 11 years and was a retired Benton Township police officer, both shot and killed by an inmate Monday.
This is an unfortunate situation where this inmate who wanted to break out was able to overpower our deputy and get his weapon.
Sheriff Paul Bailey says 44-year-old Larry Gordon was handcuffed in the front when he fought and overpowered Deputy James Atterbury, stealing his gun. Gordon shot and injured Atterbury before killing the 2 bailiffs and attempting to take hostages in the courtroom. Bailiffs eventually shot and killed Gordon.
Those bailiffs were heroes, along with all the other officers that were in that courtroom. They ran to where shots were being fired, and this could have been a lot worse without them being so brave to go into the gunfire and take this person down.
Bailey says investigators are reviewing security footage, trying to determine a motive, and in the meantime, working to heal.
With God's help, with prayer, we'll get through this. With our brotherhood, we'll get through this. We'll lean on one another, and we'll mourn the loss of Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro, and we'll move on.
Now, the sheriff said that grief counseling will be available for all employees. He talked about the support that they've received, too. He said his voicemail is full, and he's received upwards of 500 emails. And I do want to point out that a memorial is growing outside the sheriff's department right now. Bob?
Kristen, there were other people shot. There were 2 other victims in the shooting yesterday. What do we know about those 2 people?
We learned that Deputy James Atterbury is still in the hospital in stable condition. There was another woman shot in the arm. We don't know her condition or whether she's still in the hospital at this point. Autopsies, I should mention, on the 2 bailiffs were scheduled for this morning.
Now, Kristen, also this morning, the sheriff talked about how the inmate was handcuffed with his hands in front of him, looking at the possibility of changes in protocol here.
He said everything will be looked at. He said they're going to talk with the chief judge, they're going to talk with administrators, and of course the county commissioners, and look at what happened and how maybe they can make it safer in the future.
All right, Kristen reporting live. We'll continue our live team coverage throughout the course of the day. We now move on to the first police radio traffic from the scene, showing the confusion and the terror as the shooting unfolded.
Shots fired. Shots have been fired.
Shots fired. One down. One down.
Shots fired. One down.
Clear. Officer down. Officer down.
Clear. Officer down.
Third floor, just off the elevator. CPR in progress. We're doing CPR on 2 right now. And we're going to probably need 2 or 3 ambulances.
Is the shooter still at large?
No, shooter is down.
Now, support began pouring in almost immediately for the victims' families and the entire city of St. Joseph. The Obama administration is now expressing its sympathies for the victims of yesterday's shooting. Attorney General Loretta Lynch made a statement before testifying in front of a U.S. House committee this morning.
The Department of Justice stands ready to provide whatever help we can to state and local authorities as they investigate this heinous crime, and our sincerest condolences are with the friends, the colleagues, and the loved ones of the devoted public servants that we lost.
Michigan Governor Rick Snyder also drove to town yesterday evening when he heard about this shooting. He says this is a time to come together and be strong.
This is a particularly tough time for law enforcement, so I ask that everyone reach out and try to be as supportive of law enforcement across the state and across the country as possible in a difficult case like this.
Now, leaders specifically from Southwest Michigan are also reacting. Congressman Fred Upton saying, quote, "What occurred in my hometown breaks my heart. My thoughts are with our entire community, our friends and neighbors. This tragic event reminds us all too well that our law enforcement officers have their lives on the line every day, not knowing what that day will bring. We have lost 2 very able public servants, and we all grieve for them and their families." As we learn more about this horrific situation, one thing is clear: we must do better to prevent these types of tragedies from occurring. Now, Republican State Senator John Prose of St. Joseph said also, quote, "At the time of the incident, I was at my constituent service office just a block away from the courthouse. I can attest to the professionalism and the outright heroism of law enforcement agencies, as well as first responders from all over Southwest Michigan. These men and women get up every day and put themselves in harm's way in order to serve and protect our community. They were met with violence, and apparently, again, he wrote this yesterday, before we knew all the details, several have lost their lives." Now, stay with WSBT 22 for continuing coverage of the Berrien County Courthouse shooting. We will have the very latest developments throughout the afternoon at WSBT.com and our WSBT 22 mobile app. Our team coverage continues on air with the latest in this investigation, starting WSBT 22 first at 4.
You're watching WSBT 22 News, first at 4.
Our hearts and prayers go out to Joe Zangaro and Ron Kinzel's family. They were 2 great individuals that have served law enforcement for many, many years. They were loving husbands, loving fathers.
Well, first at 4, our community is in mourning right now. A short time ago, a memorial service was held to honor 2 court bailiffs killed yesterday in the shooting at the Berrien County Courthouse. We remain on the scene gathering the very latest on this shooting. WSBT 22's Suzanne Spencer is there at the memorial for those officers. And WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon, she's here and she has an update on what we know about the gunman. But this is who we want to talk about first. Bailiffs Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro. They were shot and killed by the inmate at the courthouse. Other officers returned fire, killing the suspect. 41-year-old Sheriff's Deputy Jim Atterbury was injured in that. Let's get the latest now from WSBT 22's Suzanne Spencer. Suzanne, many people stopping by that memorial behind you.
Jennifer, this memorial behind me is made up of lots of mementos, of flowers, of different notes honoring these 2 officers. But keep in mind here, this is growing outside the Berrien County Sheriff's Department, all the while these officers are trying to go about their normal day just in the midst of this absolute tragedy of losing some of their own. Now, we want to walk you through a little bit about what we know so far. A deputy was moving an inmate from a holding cell to a courtroom. He was there for a hearing on a sexual misconduct charge and a domestic issue, but in that process, the inmate had an altercation with the deputy. The suspect managed to somehow get the deputy's gun while handcuffed in the front, shooting the deputy in the arm. Then we know the suspect killed the 2 bailiffs. We know from some scanner traffic that 1 bailiff was hit near the elevator on the 3rd floor, and that's when several other officers got involved and shot the suspect. Several other agencies are stepping in to help Berrien County Sheriff's Department, including Benton Harbor's Police Department.
Both men, they were your cops. I mean, You know, there's no bad stuff out there about them. They're just good guys. You know, they did their job. They did it every day. People were happy. They were firm when they had to be firm. They were fair. It's just a sad loss.
You have to keep in mind, when all this happened yesterday afternoon, the Berrien County Courthouse was very busy. It's a very busy time of day. People paying tickets, different court hearings, all sorts of different things going on in that courthouse. But on the third floor where this happened, that's also a busy area. The prosecutor's office is in there, which has several different attorneys. We know some of them heard those shots, as well really as people throughout the courthouse, many of them describing it as very surreal.
Yes, Suzanne, the deputy and another woman are also recovering.
Jennifer, Deputy Atterbury is still recovering. We also know the woman who was hit by the bullet. Her name is Kenya Ellis of Berrien County, and the hospital at this point is not yet commenting on her condition.
All right, Suzanne, thank you very much for that update out there. And we want to give you a better look at that memorial set up outside the Berrien County Sheriff's Department. All day long, we have seen people dropping off notes, flowers, and balloons, just paying their respects to bailiffs Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro. Now, our crews report seeing almost the entire staff of Whirlpool walking over to that memorial. Other visitors told WSBT 22's Danielle Kennedy that it's a very sad time and that it's going to be very tough getting things back to normal out there. Well, now for the latest on the suspect. Larry Gordon. He is the man police say overpowered a sheriff's deputy, got his gun, and killed the bailiffs. He was then killed by police. We've been looking into his past today, and records show he was locked up on major felony charges. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon has been looking into that. Caitlin, Gordon's ex-wife has now spoken out.
Yes, Jessica Gordon says she's praying for the Zagaro and Kinzel families, but says she too is suffering a loss. She says that Larry Gordon wasn't a bad person. He was just afraid of what the future held. But a background check shows he's been in and out of the court system several times. His arrest record stretches back to 1992 when he was taken in for felony unarmed robbery. Gordon's most recent charges, the ones he was in court for yesterday, include criminal sexual conduct and domestic violence. But Sheriff Bailey said this is the first time Gordon had been violent while in his custody.
He's not been combative. He's always been cooperative the entire time he was here.
I truly believe that he was terrified of going to prison and was just trying to come home. I truly believe that Larry wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was scared himself and just wanted to see his daughter.
Gordon has been in jail since April after canine officers had to sniff him out when officers came looking for him. That domestic violence charge stems from an incident related to his ex-wife, Jessica Gordon.
All right, Caitlin, thanks very much. People from across the country reaching out to people in Berrien County today just to share their sympathies. Leaders from neighboring cities, neighboring towns also speaking out. We talked with Benton Harbor Mayor Marcus Muhammad. He said the unity between the cities of Benton Harbor and St. Joseph is very important right now.
I think that, unity can solve 95% of our problems. We've tried many different things. But I think that we are beginning to see that we need one another and that together there's no tragedy that's too great where in the end we can triumph.
And we are going to continue to stay in St. Joseph, continuing to cover this story. Coming up at 5 o'clock, we'll have another live update on the investigation. The Sheriff's Department also expected to give another live update at 6 o'clock. We will be covering that on air and online, so stay with WSBT 22 News for continuing coverage.
Now at 5.
They were great friends, great people, loved their families, loved their children.
A huge show of support from the community after the Berrien County Courthouse shooting. Now, we're learning more about the man who killed 2 bailiffs and shot 2 other people.
This could have been a lot worse without them being so brave.
It has been an emotional day for police and people in the Berrien County community This is a live look at a memorial that is growing by the hour outside the Berrien County Sheriff's Department for the two bailiffs killed in the courthouse yesterday.
Those two men, Joe Zangaro and Ron Kinzel, they're well known in the community, both retired police officers who have been working in the courts for several years. We have team coverage of the latest developments in this investigation, the suspect, and community reaction.
Let's begin with WSBT 22's Suzanne Spencer. She is live at the Berrien County Courthouse. Suzanne, this investigation really just beginning.
Agencies like the St. Joseph Police Department, the FBI, and the Benton Harbor Police Department are all stepping in as this police department copes with an unbelievable loss. Moving together, dozens of Whirlpool employees walking to show their support for the two bailiffs killed at the courthouse. That support also coming from Benton Harbor's police department.
It was surreal. I mean, we both knew both of the gentlemen, both bailiffs, Mr. Zangaro and Mr. Kinzel. I mean, they're mentors.
Mike Clark heard the call for help several officers sent to the scene.
That's not something that this area sees on a regular basis, you know, so you don't ever think it could happen in your own backyard.
His two friends, bailiffs Joe Zangaro and Ron Kinzel, killed. Deputy James Atterbury was transporting Larry Gordon from a holding room to a courtroom. They got into an altercation, and Gordon got a hold of his gun, firing at him and both bailiffs. Atterbury is recovering, and a civilian, Kenya Ellis, is too.
With God's help, with prayer, we'll get through this. With our brotherhood, we'll get through this. We'll lean on one another, and we'll mourn the loss of Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro, but we'll move on.
Employees on the third floor and throughout the building heard those shots. People just there to pay a parking ticket, shaken up. Responding officers reminded of the risk in their line of work.
You can't tell what's in somebody's heart either. So, you know, you just don't know.
Benton Harbor's police department contributed several of their investigators to help out with this investigation going on at the Berrien County Sheriff's Department. We also know the FBI is involved in several other agencies working to piece all of this together.
Suzanne, there had been a news conference scheduled for an hour from now at 6 o'clock, but we've just learned that's been canceled, correct?
Right, Jennifer. We just heard from the undersheriff who said that that conference had been canceled. Several news outlets still here, though. Obviously, such a story that has really impacted and gripped this community. And, you know, we have not yet heard if that conference will be rescheduled or is canceled altogether, but we'll, of course, continue to keep all of you posted at home.
All right, Suzanne, thank you very much.
A memorial today remembering those killed and hurt in yesterday's shooting. WSBT 22's Danielle Kennedy is live up in Berrien County. And Danielle, hundreds of people came out to pay their respect.
Yeah, Jennifer and Rick, this police car behind me, the memorial right there, has been growing all afternoon. People stopping by to drop off flowers, cards, many even just stopping to say a prayer. While I was there, many people were hugging and crying, consoling each other as they remembered the lives lost in yesterday's shooting. Now, earlier this afternoon, hundreds of people filed in front of the courthouse to pay tribute. Police then escorted everyone about 6 blocks to the Berrien County Law Enforcement Memorial, which is there in honor of officers killed in the line of duty. Pictures of Joseph Zangaro, who was the head of courthouse security, and bailiff Ron Kinzel were displayed in front of the memorial. Everyone gathered in prayer to remember these officers. We also spoke with the father of Deputy Sheriff James Atterbury, who was shot 3 times yesterday but survived.
I know it's going to take some time for him to adjust, to deal with that, because, you know, anytime someone loses their life, it's going to affect you. And I'm praying for them, those families that lost loved ones. There's no way you can say you understand it. All we can do is say, you know, let's trust God.
Now, many law enforcement officials, public officials, even people throughout the community, all acknowledging today how hard all of these men and first responders work every single day to keep the public safe. Now, Kinzel, as we may have mentioned, worked for the Benton Charter Township Police earlier in his career. Today, the Benton Township Police chief issued a statement saying, quote, Ron was a personable individual who liked everyone. He had a sense of humor and would always make you smile when engaged in a conversation with him. His death through ultimately reminds us that we must value each and every moment we have with one another. The police express our condolences to his daughters and other surviving family members. Now, another memorial is planned for tonight at 9 o'clock at the Bluff. WSBT 22 News will have a crew at that and coverage for you on SBT2 at 10 and again on WSBT 22 News at 11. Live in St. Joseph, I'm Danielle Kennedy, WSBT 22 News.
And there is help available for Berrien County employees. The county set up grief counseling. All county employees can go talk to someone. No appointments are needed. The counselors are available at the Administration Center today, and they will also be at the Courthouse in St. Joseph tomorrow.
We're learning new details also tonight about the man who killed the bailiffs and wounded 2 others. Larry Gordon was on his way to court to face felony charges. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon is live outside the Berrien County Courthouse right now. And Caitlin, we're also learning that Gordon had a daughter.
Yes, and Gordon's ex-wife is saying that daughter was probably the motivation behind his rampage yesterday. Jessica Gordon says her ex-husband is not a bad person. He just wanted to get back to his daughter, but Larry Gordon has a long record that may lead people to think otherwise.
During his transport in between the courthouse, the courtroom and the holding cell, a fight broke out with our deputy, and he was able to remove his weapon.
Larry Gordon, while still handcuffed, used that deputy's gun to shoot and kill bailiffs Joe Zagaro and Ronald Kinzel. He also injured a sheriff's deputy, James Atterbury, and civilian Kenya Ellis.
I'll keep those families in my prayers, but I ask that they also realize we're grieving too. We lost a husband, a best friend, a father, a son, brother.
This was not Gordon's first time through the court system. His arrest record stretches back to 1992 when he was taken in for felony unarmed robbery. He's faced a wide array of charges, from manufacture of meth to more violent crimes like kidnapping, strangulation, and assault with a deadly weapon.
We were familiar with him.
This time around, Gordon was facing charges of criminal sexual conduct and domestic violence. One of those charges stemmed from an incident involving Jessica Gordon. But Sheriff Bailey says he'd never been a problem while in custody.
He's not been combative. He's always been cooperative the entire time he was here.
I truly believe that Larry wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was scared himself and just wanted to see his daughter.
Gordon had been in jail since April when officers came to arrest him. Then he ran from those officers and hid in the neighborhood. K-9 units had to come out to help sniff Gordon out.
Caitlin, thank you very much. Support has come from across the country. The Obama administration is expressing its sympathies for the victims of yesterday's shooting. Attorney General Loretta Lynch made a statement before testifying in front of a U.S. House committee this morning.
I know that we are all thinking of the 2 bailiffs who were killed and the sheriff's deputy who was wounded in a shooting in a courthouse in Michigan yesterday. The Department of Justice stands ready to provide whatever help we can to state and local authorities as they investigate this heinous crime, and our sincerest condolences are with the friends, the colleagues, and the loved ones of the devoted public servants that we lost.
Coming up at 5:30, we will hear from Congressman Fred Upton. He talked about the shooting on the House floor this afternoon. And stay with WSBT 22 for continuing coverage of the Berrien County Courthouse shooting at 5:30. We'll tell you how other departments are helping the Berrien County Sheriff's Department. You can also find the latest developments on WSBT.com and our WSBT 22 mobile app.
First, fast, accurate. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 5:30.
The St. Joseph community is dealing with a huge loss after 2 bailiffs are killed in a shootout at the Berrien County Courthouse.
Yeah, there are still a lot of questions tonight. A memorial has been growing outside the Sheriff's Department. You can see a live picture of the flag flying at half-staff there. This is a live picture here outside the courthouse where those 2 bailiffs were killed. WSBT 22's Jesse Schultz has been following this investigation all day. She is at the live desk with the latest there.
Jennifer, there has been an outpouring of support from the community at that memorial site you just showed us. For many in the community, it's a reminder that the violence we've been seeing all around the country can hit so close to home. 63-year-old Ron Kinzel and 61-year-old Joe Zangaro were both shot and killed while they were on the job inside the courthouse yesterday. Deputy James Arterberry was escorting 44-year-old Larry Gordon to court. Investigators confirmed this morning that Gordon was handcuffed in the front when he fought, overpowered, and stole Atterbury's gun. Gordon shot and injured Atterbury before killing Zangaro and Kinzel and attempting to take hostages. 2 other bailiffs then shot and killed Gordon.
Those bailiffs were heroes, along with all the other officers that were in that courtroom. They ran to where shots were being fired, and this could have been a lot worse without them being so brave to go into the gunfire and take this person down.
Police are still reviewing the security footage and investigating to determine what Gordon's motive might have been. The courthouse was closed today and will be again tomorrow. Counselors were at the courthouse today to help employees deal with the situation. They will be back there tomorrow. At the live desk, Jesse Schultz, WSBT 22 News.
Congressman Fred Upton spoke about the courthouse shooting on the House floor this afternoon. He says he just spent time with Sheriff Paul Bailey a few days ago and personally knew Joe Zangaro.
We should continue to keep those affected in our hearts and our minds. I also want to thank the countless folks on the front lines who clearly prevented the tragedy from even being worse. Swift actions of those on the ground need to be commended, particularly the Berrien County Sheriff Department led by Sheriff Paul Bailey.
Congressman Upton says it is times like this that we should unite. He also thanked local and state leaders for their help and their support. And you can read more statements from local, state, and federal leaders on WSBT.com.
Right now, a team is working to make sure area first responders get some TLC. WSBT 22's Hillary Paulo is here for us. And Hillary, Berrien County has some extra workers out in the field today. We're having some audio issues with Hillary. We can tell you that counselors from Riverwood Center met with city workers at Berrien County's administration building. Now, some of those workers were wearing blue and black ribbons in memoriam. Experts say it's good to check in with coworkers as much as possible. And counselors say it's not uncommon to have flashbacks or even physical pain like headaches or dizziness after experiencing trauma. The people who talked to experts today want to chat in a group.
It helps when you have those who understand it, maybe who have even experienced some of the same things you've experienced, to stand shoulder to shoulder and support each other up through it. Because each of us kind of fall apart at a different time, and by having a group of people supporting one another, you'll have people who will be there and provide strength and support when we need it most.
Now, the atmosphere at the administration building was one of sheltering and caring for one another. We saw extra boxes of tissue and people embracing. And coming up tonight at 6, we're going to tell you what experts say you can do to work through the stress. And stay with WSBT 22 for the latest on the Berrien County Courthouse shooting. At 6, we'll bring you a live news conference that we thought may be happening, but at this time we're not quite sure. You can also find updates anytime on our website and the WSBT 22 News app.
First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Rick Schutt. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 6.
When I heard it, I just didn't know what to think.
Emotional reaction day from the father of the sheriff's deputy who survived yesterday's deadly shooting at the Berrien County Courthouse. And there has been a huge show of support from the community today in St. Joseph, Michigan.
That's right. The investigation now underway in yesterday's shooting. Bailiffs Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro died when an inmate grabbed a deputy's gun while officers were transporting him from a holding cell. Other officers then shot and killed him. Deputy James Atterbury was hurt in that shooting, and a civilian was also injured. WSBT 22's Suzanne Spencer has been in Berrien County all day today. Suzanne, obviously a tough day for the community.
Jennifer, this unforeseen tragedy has gripped the community. You can feel it outside the courthouse, which has been closed all day. You can feel it when you round the corner going to the officer memorial for those two fallen officers as the memorial continues to grow. Now, we want to break it down and give you a little bit more about what we know so far. All of this started about 2:30 yesterday afternoon. It was a very busy time at the Berrien County Courthouse. Deputy James Atterbury was transporting inmate Larry Gordon from a holding cell to the courtroom. He was in there for some charges relating to sexual misconduct, and that's when Gordon got into an altercation with Deputy Atterbury. And during that, Gordon, while handcuffed in the front, got his weapon, fired at Atterbury in the hand, then shot and killed those two bailiffs. Atterbury is recovering right now, and so is a civilian injured in the gunfire, but police across the area have stepped in, including Benton Harbor Police Department.
You can't tell what's in somebody's heart either. So, you just don't know. You can train and train and train and train, and when the time comes, you fall back to your training and hope that you get through it, but you never really know.
The Berrien County Sheriff's Department was originally scheduled to have a news conference starting tonight at 6:30, but they decided to cancel that. We're not sure at this point if it will be rescheduled, but of course the Berrien County Sheriff's Department doing as much they can to keep the public informed during all of this. Now, as far as tomorrow goes, we're expecting the courthouse to be opened up and operations to go as normal as they can.
All right, Suzanne Spencer live in St. Joseph for us tonight. Thanks very much.
Our crews have been at the memorial set up in St. Joseph all day, and this was one of the most touching moments they wanted to share with you. Take a look. A large group of Whirlpool employees walking across the bridge to the memorial outside the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph. They did it in full sun on this hot day, wanting to pay tribute to those bailiffs killed in the line of duty. And those Whirlpool employees are not the only ones who have been paying tribute to the two men who died. All day long, a memorial outside the courthouse has been growing as people stop by to pay their respects. WSBT 22's Danielle Kennedy is live there now for us. And Danielle, you've been seeing an outpouring of support.
Rick, and you can see that from the car behind me that's positioned in front of the Sheriff's Department. All day long, people stopping by to drop things like flowers and cards. The common thing that everybody has been saying that we've been hearing from people who knew these men was that they were good guys, part of a close-knit community here at the courthouse. Even people who never met Ron Kenzel or Joe Zangaro wanted to do something to pay their respects. One by one, laying down a memory as the community prepares to lay these two officers to rest. Flowers and handwritten cards are just some of many signs showing Ron Kenzel and Joe Zangaro were loved by many.
I thought the world of him. He was just the greatest person.
Ron was a bailiff with the Berrien County Trial Court and retired sergeant from the Benton Charter Township Police Department. Joe was head of courthouse security and retired commander of Michigan State Police Post in Bridgman.
It was really hard because he was a really good guy, and all of them are really good.
Just to know this could happen in the courthouse in St. Joe is just unbelievable.
James Atterbury's son, James Jr., was shot 3 times yesterday, but survived.
He had been there 13 years, had a lot of good relationship with his comrades, and, they had each other back.
Today, hundreds of people walked the streets of St. Joe, headed towards the Berrien County Law Enforcement Memorial, escorted by police. There, people laid flowers and prayed, remembering officers who have died in the line of duty. The ceremony ended in a song those officers knew well, God Bless America. Now, as we mentioned, Ron Kenzel worked for the Benton Charter Township Police earlier in his career. The Benton Charter Township Police Chief told us that Ron had a sense of humor and always made you smile. There are other tributes to the victims of the shooting. A candlelight vigil is planned at 9 o'clock tonight. We will have crews there for coverage of that on SBT2 at 10, and again here on WSBT 22 News at 11. Live in St. Joe, I'm Danielle Kennedy, WSBT 22 News.
Congressman Fred Upton spoke about the courthouse shooting on the House floor this afternoon. He said he knew Joe Zangaro personally and thanked local and state leaders for their support.
So I ask my colleagues and those who hear this message across the country to pray for the families of the two victims, the speedy recovery of another deputy, James Atterbury Jr., and a civilian caught in the middle, Kenya Ellis. We will get through this together.
We are also learning more tonight about the man who killed bailiffs Zangaro and Kinzel. 44-year-old Larry Gordon was in court for criminal sexual conduct and domestic violence charges. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon is live outside the Berrien County Courthouse right now. Caitlin, the victim of that alleged domestic violence has spoken out.
Yes, his ex-wife, actually, Jessica Gordon. She says Larry Gordon wasn't a bad person, just a man afraid of going to prison. Gordon also had a daughter, and that daughter was probably the motivation behind his attacks yesterday. Whatever Gordon's reasons, he had a long arrest record stretching back to 1992. The charges he's faced range from manufacturing meth to more violent crimes like possession of child sexually abusive material, assault with a dangerous weapon, and kidnapping. Sheriff Bailey says he and his deputies are familiar with Gordon, but adds Gordon was well behaved while in custody.
He's not been combative. He's always been cooperative the entire time he was here.
I truly believe that he was terrified of going to prison and was just trying to come home. I truly believe that Larry wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was scared himself and just wanted to see his daughter.
Gordon had been in jail since April. When officers came to arrest him, he ran and hid in his neighborhood, and canine units had to be brought out to sniff him out. The charges he most recently faces, child sexual or criminal sexual misconduct and domestic violence, were what he was in court for yesterday. Live in St. Joseph County, live in Berrien County, Caitlin Connon, WSBT 22 News.
Well, right now, a team is working some longer days to make sure first responders are recovering. WSBT 22's Hillary Paulo is here. And Hillary, Berrien County says counselors are available just in case.
Rick, they were on standby just because experts say it's important to get back to a regular schedule. Counselors with Riverwood Center were at Berrien County Administration Building to listen. Within the first 24 hours after a trauma, experts say you should structure your time and keep busy. Take a walk, exercise, and spend time with others. One counselor says talk is a healing medicine. They told first responders today it's okay to just feel bad. If you're a family member, you can help with everyday tasks like cooking and cleaning. And you can also balance out listening with giving people a little bit of quiet time.
It will probably have either a physiological or an emotional effect on you, and to recognize that would be the first step. I think it's important not to isolate yourself and try to stay out of going into the denial trap where you think, oh, this isn't that big of a deal.
Experts say also don't tell people that they were lucky it wasn't worse. It's just not consoling. We have more information about where to get help and how to help in our WSBT 22 mobile app. Rick.
Hillary, thank you. Stay with WSBT 22 for continuing coverage of the Berrien County Courthouse shooting. We'll have the latest developments throughout the evening on WSBT.com and our mobile app, and team coverage with the latest on the investigation tonight at 11.
Now at 11.
As vice presidential rumors swirl, Governor Pence makes a campaign stop for Donald Trump. Why his chances of being picked are going up. The details after a plot to use stolen guns to shoot police officers is foiled by the police. We're still learning more about the Berrien County Courthouse shooting. Reaction tonight as the community tries to heal.
First, fast, accurate with Rick Schutt. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 11.
We're still learning more tonight after yesterday's deadly shooting inside the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph. All of this started about 2:30 on Monday. Deputy James Atterbury was transporting inmate Larry Gordon from a holding cell to the courtroom. He was there for a hearing on sexual misconduct charges. Gordon got into an altercation with Atterbury. During that, Gordon, while handcuffed in the front, got his weapon, shot Atterbury in the hand, then shot and killed the bailiffs, Joe Zangaro and Ron Kinzel. Atterbury is recovering, and so is a civilian injured in that gunfire. Now, we've learned that Larry Gordon was in court for criminal sexual conduct and domestic violence charges. Gordon had been in jail since April. His arrest record stretches back to 1992 and includes other violent crimes like assault with a deadly weapon and strangulation. His ex-wife, Jessica Gordon, says he wasn't a bad person, just afraid of going to prison. Gordon had a daughter, and Jessica says she was probably the motivation behind his attack yesterday. Officers came to his home to arrest him, and he ran.
I truly believe that Larry wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was scared himself and just wanted to see his daughter.
Now, we learned today the shooter was handcuffed. Berrien County Sheriff's deputies say it appears that standard protocol was followed, but that protocol might change now. WSBT 22's Patrick Roth is live in front of the courthouse for us tonight. And Patrick, there's still a lot of things that investigators are looking at.
Yeah, Rick, they're still trying to figure out what exactly happened in that fight that led the shooter, Larry Darnell Gordon, to grabbing that sheriff deputy's gun. They're also trying to figure out which police officer wound up firing the shots that wound up killing Gordon. For a lot of people here, they're just trying to figure out how their community can move on.
I'm confused. I'm hurt.
More than a day after the shooting that left 3 people, including 2 bailiffs, dead, that raw emotion is a common feeling here in Berrien County. Many people have come to pay their respects at a shrine in front of the Sheriff's Department.
It's just like the biggest tragedy that I've faced in our county, and I feel like being a future police officer, I need to be out here.
Even people who never met Ron Kinzel or Joseph Zingaro feel the pain of their loss. But maybe nowhere is that pain felt more acutely than by those who knew them and worked with them.
They were the best. And yesterday we've lost 2 of the finest former officers and officials that had worked in our courthouse.
Both individuals, Joe Zingaro and Ron Kinzel, were friends of ours. They were friends of many of our staff and local law enforcement in general, not just our department, but local law enforcement officers. They were very well respected.
For investigators, the goal is to put the pieces together to find out exactly what happened, and how they can make sure that something like this doesn't happen again.
I'm not saying protocol wasn't followed because he was cuffed in front, which happens. We transport people to and from the courtrooms all the time, and that is a standard practice in that. So obviously in this case, it's something we'll take a look at and evaluate.
Okay. For friends and family and the whole of Berrien County, the goal will be just to try and move forward.
We as a community, we as a county have suffered a tremendous, unexplainable loss.
Now, the Sheriff's Department says that they might wind up looking at and changing some of those standard procedures, but that might be harder than you think. They say that anytime a suspect appears in court in front of a jury, they appear in handcuffs. It could lend the appearance of guilt, which could wind up biasing a jury. But Rick, they say that there are going to be a lot of things that the Sheriff's Department is going to be looking at and reviewing in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, certainly a lot of evaluation to happen. Now, Patrick, we know that the courthouse was closed today. When is it going to reopen?
You know, we were told earlier in the day that it would be open for employees, but not the public tomorrow. However, we reached out to Sheriff Bailey, and Bailey said that the courthouse will be closed tomorrow.
Okay, Patrick Roth live for us tonight in St. Joseph. Patrick, thank you so much. We also want to mention that 41-year-old Deputy Sheriff James Atterbury is recovering tonight. He was in surgery after being shot 3 times. Now, we caught up with James Atterbury's father, Reverend James Atterbury Sr.
Just Sunday, we prayed and had a prayer for the Texas incident. And we was just talking about many people don't have the real full impact of victims because it don't happen to them.
And he says that his son is always trying to help young people and is the administrator of the church youth department. Right now, a team is working to make sure that area first responders get some TLC. Grief counselors spent the day listening to city and county workers. Counselors from Riverwood Center say it's not uncommon to have flashbacks or even physical pain like chills or chest pain. Within the first 24 hours after a trauma, experts say try to keep busy. Take a walk, maybe exercise, and spend time with others.
I think it's important not to isolate yourself and try to stay out of going into the denial trap where you think, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. because your whole being has been put through quite a shock living through something like this.
And experts say if you don't know what to say to people affected, just say that you're sorry the incident occurred. We have more information on our WSBT 22 mobile app. Well, new at 11, a candlelight vigil just wrapped up at the Fountain on the Bluff in St. Joseph. Many people came out to pay their respects to Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro. WSBT 22's Heather Black attended that vigil, and she's live outside the Berrien County Sheriff's Department tonight. Heather, this had to be a very emotional night.
Rick, it really was. Many people who were coming into the vigil were hugging one another. Even others were getting emotional and tearing up just being there, remembering what happened yesterday. And about 30 minutes before the vigil start, many people started pouring in at the band shell right in downtown area of St. Joe. And we even saw Michigan police, or Michigan State and Baroda Township policemen come to pay their respects. Now, this large vigil turned out to be two separate vigils that were combined since they were taking places so close together. People who came listened to prayers for the families of the victims, local law enforcement, and the community. Candles were also a part of the ceremony, and some vigil goers we spoke with say it's encouraging to see so many come together in times like these.
Comes together to support everybody else. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter anything. It just matters that we're all here to support each other and make sure that take the hate out.
That you have a community that shows respect and has love for the community, and it shows respect for the police officers that serve every day and put their lives on the lines every day.
Now, other vigil goers are say that they're still trying to process what happened yesterday. And while many are showing much support, they're hoping that this type of togetherness will continue even after the vigil.
That support's so important now. Heather, thank you so much. Stay with WSBT 22 for continuing coverage of the Berrien County Courthouse shooting. Well, the latest developments throughout the night on WSBT.com and our mobile app, and tomorrow on WSBT 22, first in the morning.
First, fast, accurate with Jennifer Copeland and Rick Schutt. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 6.
New details tonight about this man. Larry Gordon is the prisoner who killed two courthouse bailiffs in St. Joe on Monday before being killed himself. The prosecutor says he was facing charges for holding a 17-year-old girl in a shed for 2 weeks. Police discovered that girl when they went to arrest Gordon on another warrant. Investigators say Gordon took a deputy's gun and killed bailiffs Ronald Kinzel and Joe Zangaro. Deputy James Atterbury is recovering from his wounds. Civilian Kenya Ellis was also hurt in that courthouse. She tells us she had surgery last night and is doing okay.
Now, some employees at the courthouse were back to work today, but the courthouse remains closed.
It will reopen to the public tomorrow, but many of those employees are still very shaken by what happened on Monday. WSBT 22's Suzanne Spencer is live in St. Joseph tonight. Suzanne, many of them heard the gunshots that killed their co-workers.
We talked with several of those employees who said it was just too difficult, too painful for them to go up to that third floor today where all of this happened. A reminder of the new reality inside the Berrien County Courthouse. In downtown St. Joseph, life is moving along as normal. But there's a new normal 2 blocks over at the Berrien County Courthouse. Flags a little lower, along with the hearts of those inside.
We prayed. We prayed. We heard those gunshots. We knew it was real. And we were waiting for somebody to come back and tell us what was happening.
Gary Bruce is the chief judge of the trial court. A bailiff ran into the courtroom, told all of his staff to rush to the bathroom. 5 minutes later, they heard gunshots.
It was muffled because we were on the 4th floor and it was happening on the 3rd floor. But I knew it was a gunshot. There was no other reason for it to be anything else.
A scuffle was heard. And so Ronnie was responding to that just like he has 100 times.
Down a floor was Assistant Prosecutor Patty Ceresa.
And I mean, I've been up there where there's been scuffles and incidents, and you have never seen a 6-foot-plus, over 200-pound man jump up faster and get to where he's needed. It was amazing.
She was with Kinzel Monday morning in court, the day he was killed.
It was instinctive. It was an instinct. Other people came first. The public, the court, the court personnel, everybody, not just me, everybody in this courthouse.
The family of employees placed flowers on the bailiffs' desks. Notes people never thought they'd write, pictures they never thought they'd take. There's a new normal reflecting at the Berrien County Courthouse.
They were willing to lay their lives on the line to do service to the community, and they did it every single day.
The parking lot behind me is empty today, but tomorrow it will likely be filled with several of those Berrien County Courthouse employees who are back to work tomorrow. This is also the first day that the public is allowed to go back inside the courthouse, likely with many watching over them.
Yeah, it'll be a tough day, and that's for sure. Suzanne, thank you.
Well, the shooting incident highlights how dangerous it can be for officers who work security at a courthouse. John Roberts is a retired security officer. The former Elkhart County deputy spent 26 years doing security at the Goshen Courthouse. Roberts says he really had to keep on his toes, taking inmates in for court appearances.
It's a constant battle to concentrate and focus on everything that you need to focus on for security. Heavy burden. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of heavy pressure on officers in that environment.
Roberts recalled a time years ago when one deputy covered the courthouse in Goshen and one in Elkhart. And new at 6, Berrien County has a helper working full-time to comfort folks at the courthouse. WSBT 22's Hillary Powell tells us how a cuddly companion is providing relief, one touch at a time.
This is the view of a comforting presence at the Berrien County Courthouse.
Extremely. He's very comforting to not just myself, but everyone else in this office.
Mr. Weeble, a panting plush pal, providing a little canine compassion just days after Berrien County Courthouse workers lost 2 of their own and saw a 3rd wounded. It was back to business at the courthouse. Rubbing Mr. Weeble gave a sense of normalcy.
This week, especially today, there were many people who came up to him today.
He's part of the Canine Advocacy Program, trained to calm victims on the witness stand. Today, Mr. Weeble's job is outside the courtroom.
I think he does. I think he reacts a little differently if he thinks he's needed, and what he actually, sometimes I think he knows when he has to comfort somebody.
Walking down the hall, Mr. Weeble can't get far without a hand reaching out for the calm he brings.
Not every office has a dog of their own in their office, and it's just a joy to have him, knowing he's just here for us and kids and adults as well. Joy, comfort, knowing that he's giving us love in return.
I'm told the Michigan Canine Advocate Program will be sending even more dogs to Berrien County Friday morning. They will be there, and there will be at least 2 on hand when the courts open to the public. At the live desk, Hillary Powell, WSBT 22 News.
And funeral services have been set for Joe Zangaro. A celebration of life service is planned at the Mendel Center at 1 o'clock Friday afternoon. Friends may also visit with the family from 4 to 8 Thursday evening. That will take place at Starks and Menchinger Chapel on Niles Road in St. Joseph. And just moments ago, we got word of services for Ron Kinzel. Those are planned for 1 p.m. Monday at the Mendel Center. His visitation is at the funeral home from 1 to 5 on Sunday.
The family and friends of the 2 court officers in Monday's shooting, Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro, continue to mourn tonight. WSBT 22's Patrick Roth is here. And Patrick, both of them had very deep ties to the local and law enforcement community.
Yeah, Rick, before they were bailiffs, they were both served with other local police departments. Ron Kinzel was a retired sergeant from Benton Township, and Joe Zangaro was with the Michigan State Police Department for more than 20 years. His friends in the force there remember him not just as a police officer, but as a loving family man. It's been more than 2 days since the deadly courthouse shooting. And for some, the reality still hasn't sunk in.
Oh, I don't think so. It's just such a shocking incident. You don't see those things happen too often at a courthouse, and especially to a good friend.
Captain Brown knew Joe Zangaro for more than 25 years. Joe was his boss at the Michigan State Police. And even after Zangaro left to work at the courthouse, he kept in touch with Brown.
Him and I talked regularly. He was still mentally engaged in the state police. And when I became the captain, he called me pretty regularly because we lived in the same community, traveled in some of the same circles, and he was still proud of the organization that he had spent 25 years in.
Zangaro was more than just a good boss and a great cop. He was a beloved family man.
One of the things I really remember about Joe is when his kids were older, he was so proud that he never missed one of their sporting events or school events at Lakeshore schools. I don't know how he did it as a trooper and a supervisor and working in narcotics, but he never did.
The hard part now for family, friends, co-workers, and the whole community will be saying goodbye one last time.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people miss Joe and his family. He was so proud of his girls and his grandkids, so I know that's going to be tough. So it's going to be tough for a lot of his friends that worked with him a long time.
We now know the funeral arrangements for Joe Zangaro. His visitation will be tomorrow evening in St. Joseph. His funeral will be on Friday at the Mendel Center at Lake Michigan College in Benton Harbor, starting at 1 p.m. Ron Kinzel's visitation will be on Sunday afternoon. His funeral will also be at the Mendel Center, but on Monday starting at 1 p.m. And Rick, it certainly seems like there are going to be a lot of people at both services.
Well, the Berrien County Courthouse reopened to the public today, 3 days after an inmate shot and killed 2 bailiffs and injured a sheriff's deputy and civilian. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon is live there now. And Caitlin, this has been a hard day on courthouse employees.
Yes, but they also say they have work to do. With the courthouse being closed for 2 days, people haven't been able to come in and pay parking tickets or court fines. And even though they say they're staying busy, employees say it's hard not to notice who's not there.
He was just like chilling on the benches and kind of relaxing, and I was like, Ron, working hard or hardly working? And he's like, we're the rapid response team. And I'm like, oh, okay. And Monday, he definitely was the rapid response team.
Samantha Binns is a jury clerk at the courthouse. She says she often called Joe Zangaro Top Dog Joe.
Joe was kind of more the serious type because he took his job very seriously and he loved it and he was really good at it.
Binns also remembers working with Ron Kinzel.
He's a big guy and kind of scary looking a little bit, I guess, but as soon as you talk to him, he was just the biggest teddy bear ever and so funny and goofing around.
Binns and other employees at the courthouse have been seeing a lot of support from the community today. People have been coming and going to check in and pay respect with food and flowers.
Everybody needs to come and say hi and support their county police officers, judges, city, state, all of them.
When I asked these people if they were scared, they said no.
What happened is sad, but things happen. You can't always stop it. But, they're taking precautions and we're there to support them. And that's what everybody needs to do.
The officers we have are great officers. They put their life on the line every day for us, and you can't ask for anything more than that. It was just a tragedy, and we just got to work to get by it.
The officers I saw today seemed calm, collected, just trying to do their jobs. Binns says this week's events have proven the strength of courthouse employees.
This just brought such a closeness, but it really brought us together and showed us all how much we care about each other and how much we need each other and how much family we really are, more than coworkers.
The courthouse opened to employees yesterday, and Binns says the employees used that time to grieve together. Counselors have also been made available to those workers who are struggling to cope with Monday's tragedies. Live in St. Joe, Caitlin Connon, WSBT 22 News.
A bailiff who laid down his life for others. That's how the family and friends will remember Joe Zangaro. The Berrien County bailiff was killed on Monday at the courthouse alongside Ron Kinzel. WSBT 22 Suzanne Spencer shares how his memorial service honored a fallen hero.
Everything they do together, riding in unison, mourning as one law enforcement community.
It made me feel sad because I didn't really think any of this could have happened in our town.
Rachel Taylor has a new hero.
We just want to show support because we love this city and we love our police here.
Her mom, too.
This is the town that she lives in. This is the town that we're raising our children in. And it's important to show your support and uplift those that need uplifting.
Police from across the country, step by step, trying to beat the pain together.
This is a small community, small town. I think it's important to support our police force. They are on the front lines every day.
But that tragedy now in our home, our community.
Just because this was such a senseless act and what's happening all over the country now.
An expression says it all.
I just want them to know that we love them and that we really appreciate them trying to protect us.
There's an innocence in those who won't remember Joe Zangaro, but will always remember what he stood for. At least 1,500 people were here for Joe Zangaro's services, 800 of those from the law enforcement community, and we're told that people traveled as far as Florida just to be here for this memorial service. In Benton Harbor, Suzanne Spencer, WSBT 22 News.
Services for Ron Kinzel start on Sunday. The funeral is planned for 1 o'clock Monday at the Mendel Center. His visitation is at the funeral home from 1 to 5 on Sunday.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Diane Daniels. Tonight, for the first time, audio from the emergency calls for help inside the Berrien County Courthouse. The calls captured by the dispatch center Monday afternoon when a defendant grabbed a gun and started shooting at the courthouse, left 2 bailiffs dead, 1 officer wounded, and that was until police could ultimately shoot and kill the suspect. WSBT 22's Hillary Powell is at the live desk for us tonight. And Hillary, you've been listening to nearly 1 hour of recordings.
Diane, the recording is hard to listen to. Several calls came in from people stuck inside the courthouse, and we want to warn you, some of what you hear in the background is unsettling, including the ring of apparent gunfire.
All right, are you guys in a safe location? He's coming into our office. He's coming into your office? Okay, can you lock the doors? Yeah. All right, gather everybody that you can and just lock the doors and get back, okay? No, there's just somebody with a gun. Have they fired at all? No. And he's banging on the office trying to get in.
A quivering voice calling for help inside the Berrien County Courthouse. The caller, Adam DeBear, on the 3rd floor, hiding from a man with a gun.
Do you see him at all or not? I'm locked in the bathroom right now. You're locked in the bathroom? All right, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Hiding with another co-worker from armed defendant Larry Gordon. In a whisper, the caller gives details about Gordon's location. At one point, the dispatcher asks if shots have been fired. Then...
All right, stay with me. You're doing good here, okay? What was that noise? It could have been a gunshot. That's gunshot? Yeah.
That caller stayed on the line with the dispatcher for a very long time as police worked to safely clear the building. The recording we obtained is about 90 minutes long. Diane, multiple callers dialed 911, some from inside the courthouse and some from other locations who had received texts from family or friends trapped inside. At the live desk, Hillary Powell, WSBT 22 News.
All right, thank you, Hillary. And visitation is set for tomorrow for bailiff Ron Kinzel. His funeral will be on Monday. Services were held just yesterday for bailiff Joseph Zangaro, and we will continue to bring you the latest coverage as this story continues to unfold.
It was 1 week ago today when 2 bailiffs at the Berrien County Courthouse were shot and killed by an inmate. Ron Kinzel and Joe Zangaro were responding to calls for help after that inmate was able to get a gun away from a deputy. Zangaro was laid to rest Friday. Funeral services for Kinzel just wrapped up. WSBT 22's Caitlin Connon is live in Benton Harbor. And Caitlin, a lot of people came to pay their respects today.
Ronald Kinzel was well loved and well respected, and you can see that by the sheer number of people who filled every seat at the Mendel Center and even seats in an overflow room. The people I spoke to today say it's important to honor a man who loved his job so much and died a hero.
It's important that we as a public safety family show up and support one another at all times, especially during tragedies like this.
And that public safety family turned up in droves. Dozens of patrol cars from all over the state and as far away as Texas filled the parking lot. Many of them say they didn't even know Ron Kinzel.
It doesn't matter. We all do the same job. It hits home. It's devastating for us, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, or police, anyone that loses their life in the line of duty. They've made the ultimate sacrifice, and it hits very close to home.
But law officers weren't the only people mourning a loss. Kinzel was an avid motorcycle rider and member of the Berrien County Riders. The club organized rides to benefit the Red Cross, muscular dystrophy, and other causes.
Ron supported every ride that our group, Berrien County Riders, puts on.
Just a good guy, just a good guy to be around.
Joe Young jokes that normally bikers run away from cops. That was never the case with Kinzel.
If he pulled you over or he was dealing with something, he was quick to first try to help you before he was, anything else. He's a good guy.
As those hundreds of officers filed out of the parking lot to the cemetery, they were closely followed by the Berrien County Riders. Both groups are tight-knit, brotherhoods who lost a valuable brother. Both groups agree on at least one thing.
He was a hero. What happened up there, he was a hero. He came to help others and lost his life. So that's how I look at it.
Young added that Kinzel was always smiling, was always in a good mood. Kinzel was an Army veteran and spent more than 20 years as a police officer before becoming a bailiff, and he was buried with full military honors. Live in Benton Harbor, Caitlin Connon, WSBT 22 News.